Welcome to Relaxing Historian Journey channel. Tonight we step quietly into a distant past where winter is not just a season but a test of patience, skill and quiet endurance. You find yourself among Celtic tribes in Iron Age Europe, where the land grows still and the air begins to sharpen with cold. What did it feel like to face months of darkness without modern comfort? What small choices meant the difference between warmth and suffering? As the wind carries the first whisper of frost, you begin to understand that survival here is not dramatic. It is steady, it is careful, and it is deeply human. So before you settle into the story, take a second to like the video and hit subscribe. And while you're here, share your location and local time in the comments below. Now dim the lights. You stand at the edge of a clearing, where the land stretches into rolling hills, softened by fading autumn light. The air carries a faint chill, subtle but unmistakable, brushing gently against your skin. It is not yet winter, but something is changing. You feel it in the stillness. Around you, the Celtic settlement moves with quiet purpose. Low rounded houses sit close to the earth, their thatched roofs blending into the landscape as if they grew there naturally. Thin trails of smoke rise into the pale sky, drifting slowly, almost lazily as the wind holds its breath. You take a step forward. The ground beneath your feet feels firm, slightly damp, holding the memory of recent rain. Each movement you make seems softer here, as though the land absorbs sound. Even the distant murmur of voices carries gently, never sharp, never hurried. A widely accepted understanding of Iron Age Celtic life is that communities were deeply connected to seasonal rhythms, especially in northern regions where winter could last for many long months. You sense that awareness here, not as fear, but as preparation woven into daily life. A figure passes nearby, wrapped in layers of coarse wool. The fabric looks heavy, yet it moves with a certain familiarity shaped by use and time. As they walk, you catch the faint scent of smoke and earth clinging to their clothing. It is not unpleasant. It is grounding. You pause, listening. Somewhere in the distance, wood is being split. The sound comes in steady intervals, a dull crack followed by silence, then another. It is a rhythm that feels intentional, almost meditative. No movement is wasted here. The sky above you begins to shift in tone. Pale gold deepens toward grey, the light thinning as the sun lowers behind distant hills. The shadows stretch longer now, reaching quietly across the ground. You notice how no one rushes. There is urgency, yes, but it is calm, measured. Each person seems to know exactly what must be done before the cold fully arrives. Bundles of gathered wood are stacked neatly beside homes. Tools are cleaned and set aside with care. Even small gestures carry weight. A curious detail sometimes mentioned in archaeological interpretations is that many Celtic roundhouses were built with entrances facing away from prevailing winds, often toward the east or southeast. Standing here, you begin to understand why. Even the slightest shift in wind direction changes how the cold feels against your face. You draw a slow breath. The air smells faintly of damp grass, wood smoke, and something else, something earthy and rich, perhaps stored grain or drying herbs. It settles gently in your lungs, cool but not yet biting. You move closer to one of the houses. Its walls curve smoothly, made from woven wood coated in layers of clay and straw. When you brush your fingers lightly against the surface, it feels firm, slightly rough, and surprisingly warm from the day's remaining heat. The structure holds warmth carefully, as though it understands what is coming. Inside you sense movement. A soft glow flickers through the doorway, the light of a central fire. You hesitate at the entrance, feeling the subtle contrast between the cooling air outside and the gentle warmth within. It's not dramatic, but it is enough to notice. You step inside. The space is dim but comforting. The fire burns steadily at the center, its flames low and controlled, casting soft shadows that move slowly along the curved walls. Smoke rises upward, finding its way through an opening above, though a faint haze lingers, giving the air a muted softness. You feel it immediately, warmth not intense but constant. Around the fire, simple objects rest in quiet order. Wooden bowls, woven baskets, tools shaped by hand, Nothing is excessive. Everything has a place. A lesser known but intriguing suggestion from some researchers is that daily life inside these homes involved a constant negotiation between smoke and warmth. Too much smoke could irritate the lungs, yet too little fire meant discomfort or worse. The balance was learned through experience, not instruction. You settle near the edge of the fire's reach. The ground beneath you is covered in a layer of dried plant material soft enough to ease the pressure of sitting, yet firm enough to remain stable. You shift slightly, adjusting your position, becoming aware of how your body responds to the warmth. Outside, the light continues to fade. Inside, time feels different. You listen again, but the sounds are softer here. The crackle of the fire, the faint movement of someone nearby, the occasional whisper of air moving through the structure. Everything feels contained, protected. There is a quiet realization forming. Winter has not yet arrived, but its presence is already shaping every choice, every movement, every moment. It is not something that appears suddenly. It approaches slowly, giving those who are attentive enough time to prepare. You wonder briefly how people here measure time, not by clocks, not by numbers, but by changes in light and temperature, in the behavior of animals and the feel of the wind. Each signal carries meaning, each detail matters. Historians continue to debate the exact extent to which Celtic tribes relied on stored food versus winter hunting during the harshest months. Sitting here, feeling the calm preparation around you, it seems likely that survival depended on a careful blend of both, guided by the knowledge passed quietly through generations. The fire shifts. A small piece of wood settles inward, sending a brief spark upward before it fades. You watch it disappear, leaving only the steady glow behind. Your breathing slows. The warmth seeps gently into your hands, your arms, your shoulders. The tension you did not notice before begins to soften. You become more aware of stillness, of the subtle rhythm of your own body. Outside, the world continues to cool. Inside, you remain. For now, there is balance. Not comfort in the modern sense, but something deeper. A sense of readiness. A quiet understanding that survival is not about resisting the season, but learning how to move with it. You sit a little longer, letting the moment settle. The first whispers of winter are here, and you are beginning to listen. You step back outside as the last light of day thins across the hills and the air greets you with a sharper edge than before. It presses lightly against your cheeks, cool and steady, as if testing your awareness. The change is subtle, yet unmistakable. You pause and look upward. The sky stretches wide and pale, its colour no longer warm, but washed into faint grey tones. Thin clouds drift slowly, almost reluctant to move their shapes long and stretched. They seem higher than before, more distant. You notice how the people around you glance at the sky without stopping their work. No one stares for long. They only check briefly, then continue. It's a quiet habit. You begin to understand. Here the sky is not decoration. It is information. A commonly accepted observation among scholars is that Iron Age communities relied heavily on environmental cues rather than formal systems to anticipate seasonal changes. Without written forecasts or instruments, the land itself became a guide. You can feel that reliance in every small glance upward. A faint breeze moves past you. It is different from earlier, drier, less forgiving. You turn your face slightly, letting it pass along your skin. It carries a light scent of distant water and cold earth, not strong but clear enough to notice the wind is shifting direction. You take a slow breath. Then another. The air feels thinner somehow, though you cannot explain why. It fills your lungs easily, yet leaves a slight chill behind as you exhale. The sensation lingers. Nearby, someone kneels beside the ground, pressing their hand into the soil. You watch as they pause, fingers resting against the surface as if listening through touch rather than sound. After a moment they rise again, their expression unchanged, yet their pace quickens slightly. You follow their gaze downward. The earth beneath you looks firm, but as you shift your weight you sense a faint stiffness beginning to form. Moisture within the soil is retreating, tightening its hold. It is not frozen yet, not quite, but it is preparing. A lesser discussed idea in environmental archaeology suggests that early communities could detect changes in soil moisture and density simply through repeated contact over time, you begin to see how this knowledge might not have required explanation. It was felt learned, slowly carried in the body. You walk a little farther from the Hammam settlement. The sounds of activity soften behind you, replaced by a wider quiet. The land stretches outward, open and still, with only the faint rustle of grass brushing against itself. You listen carefully. At first there is nothing, then a small detail emerges. The insects are fewer now. Their steady hum, once constant, has thinned into occasional scattered notes. The silence between those sounds grows longer. You notice it clearly. Life is withdrawing. The realization settles gently, not as alarm, but as understanding. The world is not ending. It is shifting inward, conserving itself. You wrap your arms loosely around your body, not from discomfort, from awareness. The temperature continues to fall almost imperceptibly yet consistently. You feel it most in your hands where the air touches the exposed skin. The warmth leaves gradually replaced by a cool firmness. In the distance, a group gathers near a stack of cut wood. Their movements are steady and deliberate, placing each piece carefully, aligning edges, building a structure that will not easily collapse. Even the way they stack wood reflects intention. A curious and less widely known detail is that some Celtic communities may have paid attention to the way smoke travelled from fires to interpret upcoming weather patterns. If smoke rose straight and thin, conditions were stable. If it drifted low or scattered, change was near. You glance back toward the settlement. The smoke now moves sideways. Not strongly, but enough. You narrow your eyes slightly, watching its path. It stretches low before dissolving into the air, losing its shape quickly. The wind above must be different from the wind at ground level. You feel a quiet shift in your perception. Small signs begin to connect. The sky's colour, the thinning insect sounds, the stiffness of the soil, the movement of smoke. Each detail alone seems minor. Together they form a pattern. You are learning to read it. You step forward again, your feet brushing lightly through the grass. The blades feel drier than before, their softness reduced. When you run your fingers across them, they bend less easily, holding their shape for a moment longer before returning. The land is tightening. You tilt your head slightly, listening once more. A distant bird calls, but the sound is brief, almost hesitant. Then silence returns. Even the birds seem cautious now, conserving energy, choosing when to move and when to remain still. Historians continue to examine how deeply seasonal awareness influenced decision-making in Celtic societies, with some suggesting that entire community rhythms shifted weeks before winter fully arrived. Standing here, you can sense that early adjustment already taking place. Nothing here is reactive. Everything is anticipatory. You begin to walk back toward the settlement. The light has dimmed further, and the first hints of evening settle into the space between objects. Shapes soften, edges blur slightly. The world becomes quieter, not just in sound, but in appearance. As you approach, you notice more signs of preparation. Bundles of dried plants are carried inside. Water is stored in containers sealed carefully. Tools are brought closer to shelters no longer left exposed. Each action feels small yet essential. You pass by a doorway where warmth spills outward in a faint wave. It brushes against your legs, contrasting gently with the cooling air outside. The difference is noticeable now, more than before. You pause there for a moment, not entering, just feeling. The boundary between inside and outside becomes meaningful. One holds warmth, the other slowly releases it. The space between them feels like a choice. You draw a deeper breath. The scent of smoke is stronger here, mixed with something richer, perhaps cooking grain or simmering broth. It fills the air softly, not overwhelming, but present enough to anchor your senses. Your body responds, a slight relaxation, a quiet recognition of safety. You step inside once more. The fire greets you again, its glow steady, unchanged, as if it has been waiting. The warmth reaches you, gradually touching your hands, your face, your chest. You settle near it, not too close, just within its gentle range. Outside, the cold continues to deepen. Inside, preparation continues. You notice how no one speaks loudly. Voices remain low measured, as if sound itself is being conserved. Even conversation follows the rhythm of the season. You sit still, watching, listening, learning. The signs are no longer hidden. They are everywhere, and now you are beginning to understand them. Morning arrives quietly without urgency, and you notice it first not through light, but through a shift in sound. The night stillness loosens, replaced by soft movement within the settlement. Low voices, gentle footsteps, the faint scrape of wood against wood. You open your eyes slowly. The interior of the roundhouse feels cooler than before, though the fire still glows at its centre. Its warmth remains steady, but the air beyond its reach has thinned, losing some of the comfort it held during the night. You sit up. Your breath forms a faint mist as it leaves your mouth, visible only for a moment before it fades into the dim air. It is a small detail, yet it lingers in your thoughts. The cold is strengthening. You shift closer to the fire, extending your hands toward it. The heat touches your skin gradually, not sharp but persistent. You hold them there, allowing the warmth to return in slow waves. Around you, others are already awake. No one lingers idly. Movements begin almost immediately, yet nothing feels rushed. A bowl is lifted. A bundle is tied. A tool is checked and placed into waiting hands. Each action is quiet, practiced, and precise. A widely accepted understanding of Celtic life is that early morning hours were often used to organise essential tasks, especially during colder months when daylight was limited. You can feel that pattern unfolding now, steady and purposeful. You rise to your feet. The ground beneath you feels firmer than it did the night before. The layer of dried plant material offers less softness, pressed down by repeated use. Your steps are careful at first, then more certain as your body adjusts. You move toward the doorway. Outside, the light is pale and thin, spreading slowly across the land. The sky holds a soft grey tone, neither bright nor dark, suspended somewhere in between. The sun is present but distant, its warmth muted. You step out. The air greets you sharply. It slides across your face, cool and dry, carrying the faint scent of frost. You inhale slowly, feeling the cold settle deeper in your chest than before. It is no longer a gentle warning. It is becoming real. You pause, taking in the scene. The settlement is already in motion. Groups move between structures, carrying bundles of wood, sacks of grain, and woven containers filled with gathered materials. Each person seems to know their role without needing direction. You walk toward a small gathering near the edge of the clearing. There, several people kneel beside a spread of items laid carefully on the ground. You recognize dried roots, small clusters of herbs, and strips of preserved meat. Everything is arranged with intention. You crouch slightly, observing. The textures vary. Some are brittle and light, others dense and firm. When you reach out and touch one of the dried roots, it feels rough and slightly powdery, leaving a faint residue on your fingertips. A lesser-known but intriguing detail is that certain Celtic communities stored food in underground pits lined with straw or stone to protect against moisture and temperature shifts. Looking at the careful sorting here, you begin to understand how essential that preparation must have been. Nothing is gathered casually. Everything is chosen with care. You watch as one person lifts a bundle of herbs and inhales gently before setting it aside. The scent must matter. Perhaps it signals freshness. Perhaps something else. You follow their example, bringing a small cluster closer to your face. The smell is subtle, earthy, with a faint bitterness. It lingers just long enough to register, then fades. You lower it slowly. Nearby, another group works with grain. They pour small amounts from one container to another, letting the contents fall in steady streams. The sound is soft, almost soothing, like fine sand shifting. You listen closely. It is rhythmic. Consistent. You notice how they pause, occasionally examining what remains in their hands. Small stones or debris are removed carefully, set aside without comment. Even the smallest imperfection is addressed. Historians continue to explore how Iron Age communities balanced immediate consumption with long-term storage, especially in regions where winter could disrupt access to fresh food for extended periods. Watching this process, it becomes clear that every decision carries weight. You stand again, turning slightly. The smell of smoke drifts past you stronger now, mixed with the scent of cooking. A pot rests near one of the fires, its contents simmering slowly. The steam rises in thin curls, carrying warmth into the cool air. You step closer. The heat reaches you first, brushing against your legs and hands. Then the scent follows, rich and comforting, likely a mixture of grains and herbs. It is not elaborate, but it feels nourishing. You inhale gently. Your body responds almost immediately, a quiet sense of anticipation. Food here is not just sustenance, it is timing, it is planning. It is survival measured in small, consistent choices. You watch as the contents of the pot are stirred slowly. The motion is steady, unhurried, ensuring even heat, preventing waste. Nothing is left unattended for long. A short pause settles over the space. You notice it. Not silence, but a moment where movement slows, where people seem to check their progress without speaking. Then just as gently activity resumes, you begin to see the pattern. Work flows in cycles, not in bursts. Effort is sustained, not rushed. Energy is preserved. You walk toward a stack of firewood. Each piece is placed carefully arranged to allow air to pass between them. The wood feels dry when you touch it, lighter than expected, ready to burn efficiently. You lift one piece briefly, then return it to its place. The structure remains stable, intentional. A curious observation sometimes noted in experimental archaeology is that properly dried wood can produce more consistent heat while generating less smoke. Looking at the careful arrangement here, you sense that this knowledge is not written down. It is practiced. You step back, taking in the full scene. Everywhere you look, preparation continues. Bundles carried, food sorted, fires tended, tools maintained. No one stops completely, but no one rushes. The balance is precise. You feel yourself settling into it. Your movements slow, your breathing aligns with the rhythm around you. Even your thoughts seem to quiet, focusing only on what is present. The cold remains, but it is no longer unfamiliar. It becomes something to work with, not against. You draw a final breath, deeper than before. The air is sharp, clear, alive with quiet purpose. Winter is approaching, and here every moment is used to meet it. You remain within the steady rhythm of the settlement as the day stretches forward and your attention begins to settle on the structures themselves. At first they seemed simple, low, rounded, almost modest. Now they begin to reveal their purpose. You walk slowly around one of the roundhouses, tracing its curved outline with your gaze. The shape feels deliberate. There are no sharp corners, no flat walls exposed to the wind. Everything bends gently, guiding air around it rather than resisting it. You pause near the entrance. It is positioned, carefully angled slightly away from the direction of the wind you felt earlier. When you stand there, you notice how the air shifts, how the cold current slides past rather than pushing directly inside. The design is subtle, but effective. A widely recognized insight into Iron Age Celtic architecture is that roundhouses were engineered to conserve heat while minimizing exposure to harsh weather. Their circular form helped distribute internal warmth more evenly, while also reducing structural stress from strong winds. Standing here, you can feel that intention not as theory, but as experience. You step closer to the wall. Your fingers brush against its surface and you feel the texture beneath your skin. It is firm, layered, and slightly uneven, built from woven wooden branches covered in a mixture of clay and straw. The outer layer feels cool but not cold. It holds the memory of warmth. You press your palm gently against it, and for a moment you sense a faint retained heat from the interior. Not strong, not obvious, but present. You move slowly along the curve. Each step reveals another detail. Small repairs where fresh clay has been applied. Slight variations in texture where hands have shaped the material over time. Nothing is perfectly smooth. Everything is maintained. You step back and look at the roof. Thick layers of thatch rest tightly together, forming a dense covering that slopes downward. The material looks dry, carefully arranged to allow water to run off easily while trapping pockets of insulating air beneath. You reach upward, touching the lower edge. The straw feels coarse yet tightly bound. It does not shift easily under your fingers. It's been secured with care, layered in a way that resists both rain and wind. A less commonly discussed observation suggests that thatched roofing, when properly maintained, could provide excellent insulation, helping to stabilize internal temperatures even during severe cold. As you stand beneath its edge, you begin to understand how this simple material becomes a barrier against the season. You step inside again. The transition is immediate. Outside, the air moves freely, carrying cold with it. Inside, the space feels contained, still shaped by the structure itself. The difference is not dramatic, but it is constant. You notice it in your breath. It settles more easily here. The fire at the center continues to burn its light steady, its warmth spreading outward in slow, even waves. The curved walls seem to guide that warmth, reflecting it gently back into the space rather than allowing it to escape. You move around the interior. The ground slopes slightly, almost imperceptibly guiding movement and perhaps even helping with drainage. The layout is simple, yet nothing feels accidental. You crouch near the wall once more. This time you listen. The outside world is quieter here, softened by the thickness of the structure. The wind becomes a distant murmur, no longer sharp or intrusive. Even the sounds of activity beyond the walls feel muted. You realize something important. The house does not eliminate the cold. It transforms it. You sit down slowly, resting near the edge of the fire's reach. The warmth touches your side while the cooler air lingers at your back. The balance is clear and your body begins to adjust to it without effort. You shift slightly, finding the space where comfort and awareness meet. Nearby, someone adjusts a section of the wall from the inside, pressing fresh material into a small gap. The motion is slow and deliberate, ensuring that no opening is left unsealed. Even a small draft matters now. You watch closely. The repair blends seamlessly with the rest of the structure, reinforcing the idea that maintenance is constant. There is no moment when the work is finished. It simply continues. A curious detail noted in some experimental reconstructions is that even minor openings in a roundhouse could significantly reduce its ability to retain heat. Watching this careful sealing, you understand why the attention to detail becomes essential. You glance upward. The roof curves inward, guiding smoke toward a small opening at the top. The movement of smoke is gentle, rising slowly, lingering, just enough to warm the upper air before escaping. The space feels alive. Not in a loud or active way, but in a steady, responsive way. You draw a slow breath. The scent of smoke mixes with the earthy smell of the walls and the faint dryness of thatch above. It is a layered scent complex, yet calming, grounding you in the space. Your hands rest on your knees. You feel the warmth settle into your muscles, easing the tension you did not fully notice before. The contrast between outside and inside becomes clearer with each passing moment. You think back briefly to the wind outside, to the open land, to the cooling air. Then you return your focus here. Inside there is control. Not complete control, but enough. Scholarly discussions continue to explore how much variation existed in roundhouse construction across different Celtic regions, with some suggesting that local climate heavily influenced design choices. Sitting here, you sense that this structure is not generic. It is adapted, shaped by experience. You lean slightly closer to the fire. The warmth increases, but not overwhelmingly. It remains steady, reliable, something you can depend on and without constant adjustment. You notice how no one crowds their fire. Space is respected, shared. Each person finds their place within its reach, creating a quiet balance that allows everyone to benefit without discomfort. You settle into stillness once more. The structure around you holds its shape, its purpose, clear in every curve, every layer, every carefully placed material. It is not just a shelter, it is a response. To wind, to cold, to time itself. You close your eyes briefly, feeling the warmth, hearing the softened sounds, sensing the quiet strength of the space. Outside, winter continues its slow approach. Inside, you are ready to meet it. The fire draws your attention again, not because it changes, but because it does not. Its steady presence becomes something you begin to rely on without thinking. It is always there, always working, always quietly shaping the space around it. You sit closer this time, not too near. Just enough to feel its warmth more clearly along your hands and face. The flames move gently, rising and folding inward, never rushing, never leaping too high. They seem controlled, guided by careful tending rather than chance. Each piece of wood settles into place with quiet purpose. You listen. The sound is soft. A low crackle, a faint shift as embers adjust beneath the surface. It is not loud enough to demand attention, yet constant enough to anchor your awareness. You realize something simple. The fire is never ignored. Across from you, someone leans forward and nudges a piece of wood inward using a long stick. The movement is precise, practiced. They do not disturb the structure of the fire, they only guide it. A well-established understanding of Iron Age households is that maintaining a stable hearth required continuous care rather than occasional effort. The fire was not something to start and forget, it was something to live with. You watch closely. The wood has been arranged in a way that allows air to move between the pieces. Nothing is packed too tightly, nothing is left scattered. The arrangement supports the burn, feeding it slowly. You reach out, holding your hand just above the heat. The warmth rises steadily, not in bursts, but in a consistent flow. It spreads across your skin, sinking deeper with each moment you remain still. You begin to feel it in your wrists, your forearms, even your shoulders. It travels inward. The sensation is grounding. You draw a slow breath, and the air carries the scent of burning wood. It is rich, slightly sweet, mixed with the earthy tones of the structure itself. The smell lingers in a comforting way, familiar even though you have only just arrived. You lower your hand, then raise it again, testing the distance, learning the balance. Nearby, a small bundle of kindling rests within easy reach. Thin sticks, dry and light, ready to be added when needed. You pick one up gently. It feels fragile, almost weightless. You place it near the edge of the fire, watching as the flame catches it slowly. It does not ignite instantly. It darkens first, then begins to glow, then finally burr with a small, steady flame. You watch the process unfold. Nothing here happens abruptly. Everything takes time. A curious and lesser mentioned detail is that some hearths were kept alive continuously for long periods, sometimes even carried between locations using embers wrapped carefully in insulating material. The idea of letting the fire die completely would have been avoided whenever possible. You glance at the embers. They glow beneath the surface, steady and persistent, even when the visible flame seems small. You understand now that the fire is not only what you see, it is also what remains hidden. You shift slightly, adjusting your position. The warmth changes as you move. Closer it becomes more intense, pressing gently against your skin. Farther it softens, becoming a background presence rather than a direct sensation. You find a middle point, comfortable, sustainable. Across the space someone stirs a pot again, careful not to disrupt the fire beneath it. The heat must remain even control, not too strong, not too weak. The balance extends beyond warmth. It touches everything. You notice how the smoke rises, slowly. It curls upward, lingering just below the roof before finding its way out through the opening above. A thin haze remains softening the air, diffusing the light. You breathe it in lightly. It is noticeable but not overwhelming. You begin to understand how constant exposure might feel. Not harmful in small amounts, but something that requires adjustment, something the body learns to accept over time. Scholars continue to examine how indoor air conditions affected daily life in ancient dwellings, with some suggesting that long-term exposure to smoke shaped both health and adaptation. Sitting here, you sense that this environment is not entirely comfortable, but it is necessary. You extend your hands once more. The warmth returns steady as before. Your fingers loosen, the stiffness fading gradually. You flex them gently, noticing how movement becomes easier. The fire supports you, without demanding your attention. You listen again. Beyond the crackle, there are other sounds now. The soft movement of people shifting. The faint clink of a wooden tool against a container. The low murmur of voices, calm and unhurried. Everything remains within the same quiet rhythm. No sharp interruptions. You lower your gaze to the embers. They pulse faintly, glowing brighter for a moment, then dimming slightly, then glowing again. It is a slow cycle, almost like breathing. You match it. Your own breath deepens, slows aligning with the gentle rise and fall of the fire's energy. The connection feels natural, unforced. You rest your hands on your knees. The warmth lingers. Your body settles further into stillness. You realize that the fire is more than heat. It is a center, a place where activity gathers, where attention returns, where the pace of life finds its balance. Without it, everything would feel scattered. With it, everything holds together. A faint sound draws your attention. A small piece of wood shifts, collapsing inward slightly. A brief spark rises, flickers, then disappears into the dim air above. The moment is brief, but it catches your eye. Then the fire returns to its steady state. Unchanged, you shift your weight slightly, finding a more comfortable position. The ground supports you. The warmth surrounds you. The sounds continue their quiet pattern. Outside, the cold grows stronger. Inside, the fire remains constant. You close your eyes for a moment, not to sleep, but to feel. The heat, the scent, the rhythm. Everything slows, everything steadies. When you open your eyes again, nothing has changed. And that's what matters most. You become aware of your body again as you shift slightly, and the warmth of the fire begins to reveal what the cold has already touched. Your hands feel looser now, but your arms and shoulders still carry a faint stiffness, a quiet reminder of the air outside. You look down at what you wear. The layers are simple at first glance, yet each one carries purpose. Coarse wool rests closest to your skin, slightly rough, but warm in a steady, dependable way. Over it, a heavier outer layer hangs with weight and structure shaped by repeated use. You run your fingers along the fabric. It feels thick, dense, alive with texture. You notice how it holds warmth rather than releasing it. Even after sitting near the fire, the heat does not escape quickly. It lingers, caught within the fibers. A widely accepted observation about Celtic clothing is that wool was one of the most essential materials for surviving cold climates. Its natural ability to retain heat even when damp made it invaluable during long winters. As you sit here, you can feel that function directly. You adjust your position, pulling one layer slightly closer around your shoulders. The fabric shifts with the soft resistance settling into place as though it remembers the shape of your body. It does not cling tightly, but it does not hang loosely either. It sits between those extremes, balanced. You lift your arms slowly. The weight of the material becomes more noticeable as you move. It is not heavy in a burdensome way, but it requires awareness. Each motion carries intention. You lower your arm again. Stillness returns more easily. Nearby, someone wraps a fur-lined garment more tightly around themselves. The surface of it catches the light differently, softer, less uniform than wool. You watch as they press it close, sealing warmth within. You reach out, touching the edge of the fur briefly. It is softer than expected, thicker. The hairs shift beneath your fingers, creating a barrier that feels both warm and protective. It traps a pocket of air between the fibers, holding heat close to the body. A lesser-known detail suggests that animal hides, especially those with fur intact, were often used as outer layers during colder months due to their insulating properties. Standing here, the reason feels clear without explanation. You draw your hands back. The warmth remains. You notice your feet now. They rest firmly against the ground, but the cold from below begins to make itself known again. The insulation beneath you helps, yet it cannot fully block the steady pull of the Earth's temperature. You shift slightly, tucking your feet closer beneath you. The change is immediate. Is immediate. Warmer, more contained. You become aware of how the body itself is part of the system. How posture, movement, and stillness all influence how warmth is held or lost. You bring your hands together briefly, not to warm them, to feel. The skin is softer now, less tight, more responsive. The fire has done its work, but the layers you wear hold that warmth in place, preventing it from slipping away too quickly. You glance around. Others adjust their clothing in small, almost unconscious ways. A sleeve is pulled down, a collar is lifted, a fold is smoothed. Each movement is minor yet purposeful. No one ignores the cold, but no one fights it directly either. They work with it. You stand slowly. The layers shift with you settling into new positions. The fabric brushes lightly against your skin, creating a faint, consistent friction. It's not uncomfortable. It is reassuring. You take a step, then another. The clothing moves with your body, but not freely. It reminds you of its presence with every motion. It asks for awareness, for control, for intention. You pause again, listening. The soft sound of fabric brushing against fabric blends into the background of the space. It becomes part of the rhythm, part of the environment, no different from the crackle of the fire or the murmur of voices. A curious observation from textile studies is that the layering of garments in colder climates was often more effective than a single heavy piece, allowing individuals to adjust their insulation based on activity and temperature. As you stand here, you begin to understand how flexibility becomes essential. You loosen one layer lightly. The air touches your skin more directly. Cooler, sharper. You pull it back into place. The warmth returns almost immediately. Contained again, you exhale slowly. Your breath forms a faint mist once more, though less visible than before. The interior air has warmed slightly, yet the cold still lingers at the edges. You reach toward the fire briefly, not to warm yourself fully, just to maintain balance. The heat brushes your fingertips, reinforcing what your clothing already holds. It is a partnership between fire and fabric, between environment and adaptation. You lower your hand again. The warmth stays. You notice how your body begins to relax more deeply now. The earlier tension fades, replaced by a steady comfort that does not demand attention. It simply exists. You shift your shoulders gently. The stiffness lessens. Movement becomes smoother. Scholarly discussions continue to explore how textile production and clothing choices varied across Celtic regions, with some suggesting that local resources influence both style and function. Standing here, it becomes clear that these garments are not decorative. They are essential. You sit once more, allowing the layers to settle around you. The fabric folds naturally, creating small pockets where warmth gathers. You're just slightly refining the balance, finding the position where heat is held most effectively. You become still. The fire continues its steady burn. The clothing holds its quiet purpose. Your body rests between them. Out the soul, sub-soul. Just outside, the cold continues its slow advance. Inside, you remain prepared, not through resistance, but through understanding. The quiet activity of the settlement shifts as your attention moves toward what has been gathered, sorted and carefully set aside. You begin to notice how much of life now revolves around what will last, rather than what is immediate. You step outside once more. The air feels colder than before, though the change is slight. It presses gently against your face, steady and persistent, as if reminding you that time is narrowing. The sky remains pale, its light thinner and distant. You walk toward a shaded area near the edge of the clearing. There, several storage spaces have been prepared, some partially hidden, others built close to the ground. You kneel beside one of them, noticing how the earth has been shaped and reinforced to hold what lies inside. The opening is narrow, protected. You lean closer. A faint scent rises from within, earthy and dry, with hints of grain and something slightly sweet. It is not strong, but it lingers enough to tell you that this space holds more than soil. A commonly accepted interpretation of Iron Age survival strategies is that food preservation was essential in regions where winter severely limited fresh resources. Communities relied on drying, smoking, and storing to extend the life of what they gathered. As you observe these spaces, the importance of that effort becomes clear. You reach down carefully, brushing your fingers along the edge of the opening. The soil feels firm, compacted with intention. It has been shaped to resist moisture, to hold its structure over time. Even the smallest detail has been considered. You watch as someone nearby removes a covering. It's made from layered materials, woven fibers, combined with earth, designed to seal the space without trapping too much moisture. The motion is slow and deliberate, revealing the contents beneath only briefly before it is closed again. Nothing is left exposed for long. You notice the care, the restraint. You stand and move towards another storage area. This one holds bundles of dried plants tied tightly and hung in a sheltered space where air can move freely around them. You reach out and touch one gently. It is light, fragile. The leaves crumble slightly beneath your fingers, releasing a faint scent that carries bitterness and depth. The aroma lingers, suggesting that these plants hold more than flavor. Perhaps they are used for healing, perhaps for preservation. A lesser-known insight from botanical studies suggests that certain herbs used by Celtic groups may have had antimicrobial properties, helping to slow spoilage or support health during colder months. As you inhale the subtle scent, you begin to see how knowledge of plants extends beyond simple use. You move slowly along the row. Each bundle is different, some darker, some lighter, each with its own texture, its own purpose. You pause listening. The sounds here are softer than near the fire. The air feels still held in place by the structures around you. Even your own movements seem quieter, as though the space encourages restraint. You take a slow breath. The scent of dried materials fills your senses, grounding you in the present moment. Nearby strips of meat hang from a wooden frame, spaced carefully apart. You step closer, examining them. They are firm, dry to the touch. The surface feels slightly hardened, yet not brittle. You press gently and the material yields just enough to suggest it has retained some flexibility. You withdraw your hand, respecting the process. A curious detail noted in experimental food preservation is that airflow plays a crucial role in preventing spoilage. Too little air can trap moisture, while too much can dry food too quickly, reducing its usefulness. Watching how these strips are arranged, you see that balance in practice. Nothing is placed randomly. Everything follows quiet rules. You turn your attention to a set of containers resting low against the ground. They are simple in form, shaped from clay, their surfaces slightly rough, marked by the hands that formed them. You crouch beside one, placing your hand against its side. It feels cool, steady. The temperature remains consistent, protected from the fluctuations of the open air. You tap it lightly and the sound is dull, contained. Inside, something shifts softly. You pause, listening. The contents are held securely shielded from light, from wind, from sudden change. The container becomes part of the preservation itself. Researchers often suggest that storage vessels played a vital role in protecting food from pests and environmental exposure, especially in colder climates where resources were limited. As you sit beside it, you sense how important that protection must be. You rise slowly. Your movements remain measured, influenced by the calm around you. There is no urgency here, only continuity. Each action supports the next. You walk back toward the center of the settlement. The smell of smoke greets you again, warmer now, more familiar. It blends with the faint traces of stored food, creating a layered atmosphere that speaks of preparation and care. You pass by another group working quietly. They sort small items into separate containers, ensuring that nothing is mixed unnecessarily. Even the smallest portion is handled with attention. You notice how nothing is what is. Not a fragment, not a scrap. You pause for a moment at watching their hands move. Then, certain. Each motion reflects understanding built over time, not taught in words, but passed through repetition. You draw a deeper breath. The air feels colder than before, yet you no longer react to it with surprise. It has become part of the environment, something to be accounted for rather than avoided. You step back inside one of the roundhouses. The warmth returns, gently wrapping around you without effort. You settle near the fire once more, your body responding quickly to the change. The contrast is clear. Outside preservation, inside protection, both essential. You sit quietly reflecting on what you have seen. Food stored beneath the earth, plants dried and hung with care, meat preserved through time and air, containers shaped to hold and protect. Each method is simple, yet together they form something complex, a system. You rest your hands in your lap. The warmth seeps back into your fingers, softening the slight chill that remains. Your breathing slows, aligning once more with the steady rhythm of the viewer. Beyond the walls, the cold continues its quiet advance. Inside preparation holds its ground, and you now understand how survival is built not in moments of crisis, but in countless small decisions made long before winter arrives. You notice the animals before you fully see them, not through sight, but through sound and scent. A soft shifting, a low breath, the faint warmth of living bodies carried on the air. It reaches you, gradually blending with the familiar traces of smoke and earth. You turn toward the edge of the settlement. There, close to the roundhouses, a small group of animals gathers within a simple enclosure. Their presence feels calm, steady, and deeply connected to everything you've already observed. You step closer. The ground here is softer, pressed down by repeated movement, yet still holding a slight give beneath your feet. A mix of straw and earth creates a surface that feels warmer than the open ground beyond. You pause just outside the enclosure. listening. A slow exhale from one of the animals breaks the quiet, followed by a gentle shifting of weight. The sound is low, almost rhythmic, as if it follows the same steady pattern as the fire inside the homes. You inhale. The scent is stronger here. Warm, earthy, carrying the unmistakable presence of animals, yet softened by straw and time. It is not unpleasant. It feels grounding, like another layer of the environment. You step inside. The animals barely react. They glance toward you briefly, then return to stillness. Their movements are economical, conserving energy, mirroring the behavior you've seen among the people. A well-supported understanding of Iron Age Celtic communities is that livestock played a crucial role in survival, providing not only food but also materials, and in colder months a valuable source of warmth. Standing here, you begin to sense how their presence extends beyond simple utility. You move slowly between them. Their bodies radiate heat, not intensely but consistently. As you pass close to one, you feel a subtle warmth brush against your leg, a gentle contrast to the cooling air around you. It lingers for a moment, then fades as you step away. You reach out carefully. Your hand rests against the side of one animal, and you feel the steady rise and fall of its breath. The warmth beneath its coat is immediate, reassuring, alive. The texture of its fur is coarse but thick, forming a barrier that holds heat close. You keep your hand there briefly, then withdraw, respecting the space. A lesser explored idea in some reconstructions suggests that in certain cases, animals may have been kept close to human living spaces during winter to take advantage of shared warmth, though the exact arrangements likely varied. As you stand here, the possibility feels practical, even necessary. You glance toward the nearby structures. The distance between shelter and enclosure is small, intentional. You listen again. The animals create a soft background of sound, occasional movement, a quiet breath, the faint rustle of straw shifting beneath their weight. It forms a steady presence, not demanding attention but always there. You notice how calm they are. No sudden movements, no agitation. Their stillness reflects the season. Energy is conserved. Movement is measured. You walk toward a corner where bundles of feed are stacked neatly. The material looks dry, carefully preserved, much like the plants you observed earlier. You reach down, picking up a small portion. It feels light, fibrous. You bring it closer to your face. The scent is faint, grassy, with a dry sweetness that lingers softly. You lower it again, placing it back with care. Everything here is managed. Nothing is left to chance. You watch as someone enters the enclosure, moving quietly among the animals. Their steps are slow, deliberate, ensuring that nothing startles the group. They check each animal briefly, a glance, a touch, a moment of attention. You follow their movements. Learning. Care is constant here, not occasional. Each animal is part of the system, part of the balance that allows the community to endure what is coming. You step back slightly, allowing space. The air shifts again, carrying warmth mixed with the scent of straw and earth. It settles around you, forming a layer that feels different from the open air beyond the enclosure. You realize something subtle. This space holds its own kind of shelter, not enclosed by walls, but shaped by presence. Jump and sin. You stand still for a moment, letting the warmth reach you, listening to the quiet rhythm of breath and movement. A curious observation from animal studies is that livestock tend to cluster together in colder conditions, reducing heat loss by sharing body warmth. As you look around, you notice how the animals stand close, not tightly packed, but near enough to benefit from one another. It is instinct, simple, effective. You take a slow breath. The air feels heavier here, but also warmer. It carries life within it, a steady reminder that survival is not solitary. It is shared. You turn and begin to walk back toward the roundhouses. Each step carries you from one source of warmth to another, from living bodies to the steady fire waiting inside. The transition feels natural, almost seamless. You pause once more at the edge of the enclosure. Looking back, the animals remain still, their presence unchanged, their quiet role continuing without interruption. You step away. The cooler air meets you again, sharper now after the warmth you just left. It brushes against your face, reminding you of the outside world. You move toward the nearest shelter. The firelight glows softly through the entrance, steady and inviting. You step inside and the warmth returns once more, wrapping around you in a familiar way. You settle near the fire. Your body adjusts quickly, holding on to the warmth you carried with you, blending it with the heat of the hearth. The transition feels smoother now. You understand the connection. Animals, fire, shelter. Each one supports the other. Each one holds a part of what is needed. You rest your hands in your lap. The warmth settles deeper. Your breathing slows. Outside, the cold continues its patient advance. Inside, life gathers its strength. And you begin to see how survival is built not from one source alone, but from many working quietly together. The day never fully brightens. You notice it slowly, almost without thinking, as you step outside once more. The light that surrounds you feels thin, stretched across the land rather than shining down upon it. Shadows exist, but they are soft without sharp edges. Time feels different here. You pause near the doorway looking outward. The sky remains pale, its colour drifting between grey and faint silver. The sun sits low, even though much of the day has already passed. Its warmth barely reaches you. You draw a slow breath. The air feels colder than it did earlier, not dramatically, but steadily. You begin to understand that daylight itself is no longer a reliable source of warmth. It offers visibility, but little else. A widely recognised feature of life in Northern Iron Age Europe is the significant reduction in daylight during the winter months, which influence not only temperature, but also daily activity patterns. Standing here, you feel that limitations settle quietly into your awareness. You step forward into the open space. The ground feels firmer, now less forgiving beneath your feet. The moisture that once softened the surface has withdrawn further, leaving behind a faint hardness that resists your weight. You walk slowly. Each step is deliberate, not out of caution, but out of adjustment. You notice how the settlement moves differently now. There is less motion than before, fewer people crossing the open space, more activity close to the shelters. It is not a sudden change. It is gradual. You watch as someone carries a bundle of wood only a short distance before stopping to rest briefly. The pause is not from exhaustion, but from conservation. Energy is measured now. Carefully, you listen. The sounds are quieter than earlier in the day. The sharp cracks of wood splitting have faded. The murmur of voices is lower, less frequent. Even the animals seem calmer, their movements reduced. The world is slowing. You feel it within yourself. Your own movements become more controlled, more intentional. You do not rush. You do not wander without purpose. Even standing still feels like part of the rhythm. You glance toward the horizon. The light has already begun to fade. It happens sooner than you expect. The sky deepens slightly, the pale tones shifting toward muted blue and grey. The change is subtle, yet it signals something important. The day is ending. You check your sense of time. It feels incomplete, as though the day never fully arrived before it began to leave again. A lesser-known observation from environmental studies suggests that reduced daylight can influence not only activity levels, but also perception of time, creating a sense of compression in daily experience. Standing here, you begin to feel that effect. The day feels shorter, not just in hours, but in presence. You walk toward a group gathered near one of the roundhouses. They sit close together, working quietly with their hands. Some handle tools shaping small objects. Others prepare materials, organizing what will be needed for later. No one speaks loudly. The conversation, if it exists, remains soft, almost blending into the background. You sit nearby, joining the stillness. The light continues to fade. Gradually, relentlessly, you notice how people begin to shift their focus inward toward the spaces where fire and shelter provide warmth. The open areas of the settlement become less active, less central. You follow that movement. Your attention turns toward the doorway of the nearest roundhouse, where the firelight grows more visible as the outside light weakens. The glow feels stronger now, not because it has changed, but because everything else has dimmed. You stand, then step inside. The contrast is immediate. Outside the light of boards. Inside it holds. The fire becomes the center once again, its warmth and glow filling the space with steady presence. You move closer, feeling the familiar heat reach your skin. You sit down slowly. The ground supports you. The warmth surrounds you. The transition feels complete. You listen. The sounds inside are clearer now, more defined. The crackle of the fire, the soft movement of fabric, the quiet shifting of bodies finding their places. Everything gathers here. A thoughtful point raised in some historical interpretations is that winter likely encouraged stronger communal bonds as reduced daylight and harsher conditions brought people closer together within shared spaces. Sitting here, you sense that closeness not as something forced, but as something natural. You glance toward the doorway. The outside world is still visible, but only faintly now. The shapes are less distinct, the colours muted. The boundary between inside and outside feels more pronounced. You turn back to the fire. Its light flickers gently, steady and reliable. It does not change with the fading of the day. It continues unaffected by the loss of sunlight. You extend your hands toward it. The warmth returns familiar and reassuring. Your fingers relax, your shoulders ease, your breath slows. You settle deeper into your position. The rhythm of the day has shifted from outward movement to inward stillness. You feel it clearly now. The shortening of the day is not just a change in light, it reshapes everything. How people move, how they work, how they rest, even how they think. You close your eyes briefly. The warmth holds you. The sounds remain soft. The world beyond the walls continues to darken. When you open your eyes again, the fire is still there. Unchanged, steady, the center of everything. And you understand that as the days grow shorter, life does not diminish. It gathers, it concentrates, it becomes quieter, but also deeper. You rest your hands in your lap. Your breathing slows further. The night approaches, and you're already within its rhythm. Darkness settles gradually, not as a sudden arrival, but as a quiet deepening of everything around you. The firelight grows stronger. By contrast, its glow shaping the interior space with soft, shifting patterns. You sit still listening. At first, the sounds inside the roundhouse feel familiar. The low murmur of voices, the gentle crackle of burning wood, the faint movement of fabric as people adjust their positions. These sounds form a steady foundation, something predictable. Then beyond the walls, something else emerges. A distant rustle, faint, almost uncertain. You lift your head slightly, your attention drawn outward. The sound does not repeat immediately. It lingers in your memory rather than in the air. You wait listening again, your breath slowing to match the stillness around you. There it is again, soft, brief, unclear. You glance toward the doorway where darkness now rests fully beyond the threshold. The outside world has lost its shape, replaced by shadow and suggestion. What lies beyond cannot be seen clearly, only sensed. A commonly recognized aspect of life in pre-modern settlements is that night brought a different kind of awareness, one shaped more by sound than sight. Without artificial light, people relied on hearing to interpret their surroundings. Sitting here, you feel that shift happening within you. Your senses adjust. The firelight behind you feels warmer now, more protective, as the unknown settles beyond the walls. You remain where you are, not moving close to the doorway but not retreating either. Balanced. You listen again. This time the wind carries a faint whisper across the surface of the land. It brushes against the structure, creating a soft, steady sound that moves along the walls before fading. It is not strong, but it is constant enough to notice. You feel it subtly, even through the shelter. A less widely discussed observation suggests that the acoustics of roundhouses may have softened external sounds while still allowing certain frequencies to pass through, shaping how inhabitants experience the night. As you sit here, you begin to sense how sound changes as it moves through space. The outside is present, but distant. You shift slightly, adjusting your position. The ground feels firmer now, the warmth of the fire reaching only partway beneath you. Your body adapts without effort, settling into a posture that conserves heat while maintaining comfort. You bring your hands together briefly, not from cold, from focus. You listen once more. Another sound. This time it is sharper. A small snap like a branch giving way under pressure. It comes from farther away, yet clear enough to register. You hold still, allowing the sound to settle into your awareness. It does not repeat. The silence that follows feels deeper than before. You glance at those around you. No one reacts strongly. A few pause briefly, their attention shifting outward for a moment, then returning to their tasks. The sound is acknowledged but not feared. You begin to understand. The night holds many sounds. Not all of them require action. Some are simply part of the environment movements of animals. Shifts in the land, changes carried by the wind. Huneng, the difference becomes essential. You draw a slow breath. The air inside feels warmer now, though the edges of the space still carry a faint chill. The smoke lingers lightly, softening the atmosphere, blending with the earthy scent of the walls. Your senses remain active, alert but calm. A curious detail mentioned in some environmental studies is that nocturnal animals become more active during colder months as they search for limited resources, increasing the variety of sounds heard at night. As you listen, you begin to imagine what might be moving beyond the walls. Small creatures. Careful, quiet. You tilt your head like... The wind shifts again, carrying a different tone, this time lower, more continuous. It moves across the structure, creating a faint hum that blends with the crackle of the fire. The sounds begin to layer, inside and outside, known and unknown. You feel the balance between them. You adjust your position once more, leaning slightly closer to the fire. The warmth increases, grounding you, anchoring your attention in something certain. The unknown remains outside, but you are not drawn to it. You remain here, within the circle of light. An interesting point raised by some historians is that communal living spaces during winter nights may have provided psychological comfort, reducing anxiety associated with darkness and uncertainty. Sitting here, you sense that effect clearly. The presence of others matters, even in silence. You glance briefly at the doorway again. The darkness has not changed. It remains still, impenetrable. You turn your gaze back to the fire. The flames continue their steady movement, rising and folding, casting shadows that shift gently along the curved walls. The light is soft, consistent, never overwhelming. You let your eyes rest there. Your breathing slows further. The sounds outside continue, but they no longer hold your focus in the same way. They become part of the background, part of the larger environment that exists beyond your immediate space. You feel a quiet shift. The unknown is still present, but it no longer feels distant. It feels integrated, part of the same world. You lower your shoulders slightly, releasing the last traces of tension. Your hands rest loosely in your lap. The warmth settles deeper into your body. The sounds continue their gentle pattern. Inside, steady. Outside, subtle. You close your eyes briefly, not to sleep, but to listen without distraction. The fire, the wind, the faint movements beyond, all of it blending into a single continuous presence. When you open your eyes again, nothing has changed, and that consistency becomes its own kind of comfort. The night is here, and you are learning how to hear it. The fire burns lower now, not weaker, but calmer, as if it has settled into the rhythm of the night. Its glow stretches across the interior in soft pulses, lighting faces, walls, and hands with a gentle, steady presence. You sit quietly aware of how the space feels different after darkness has fully arrived. The outside world no longer competes for attention. Everything centers. You notice a subtle shift in the people around you. Movements slow even further, and voices drop into softer tones, almost blending into the sound of the fire itself. There is a sense of quiet gathering, not just of bodies, but of attention. You watch as someone reaches for a small object near the fire. It is simple, made of carved wood, marked with faint patterns that catch the light when turned. They hold it briefly, then place it carefully near the center, close to the warmth. Others begin to do the same. Small items, carved shapes, pieces of bone, smooth stones, each one placed with intention, forming a loose circle around the fire. You lean forward slightly, curious. The arrangement is not random. It feels deliberate, guided by a quiet understanding shared among those present. A widely recognized aspect of Celtic culture is the importance of ritual and symbolic practice, especially in relation to seasonal change. These moments were not always elaborate or formal, but often integrated into daily life in subtle ways. Sitting here, you begin to sense how meaning is expressed without words. You draw a slow breath. The air carries a different quality now. Still warm, still layered with smoke, but also focused, as if attention itself has changed the atmosphere. One person closes their eyes briefly. Another lowers their head. No one speaks. The fire becomes the center once again, but in a different way than before. Not only a source of warmth, but something that draws thought inward, something that gathers intention. You feel it. A quiet pull. You lower your gaze toward the flames. They move slowly, their edges soft, their light steady. You watch how they rise and fall, how they respond to the smallest shift in air. You match your breathing to that rhythm. Slow, even, present. A less frequently highlighted observation suggests that seasonal rituals in early Celtic societies may have been closely tied to cycles of light and darkness marking transitions not just in time, but in awareness. As you sit here, the connection feels natural. The night is not empty. It is filled with meaning. You glance briefly at the objects arranged near the fire. Each one reflects light differently. Some glow faintly. Others remain dark, absorbing the warmth without reflecting it. Together they form a quiet pattern, a shared focus point. You wonder what each piece represents. Perhaps memory, perhaps protection, perhaps something more difficult to define. You do not ask. The understanding here is not spoken. It is felt. You sit a little straighter, your hands resting lightly on your knees. The warmth of the fire reaches you steadily, grounding your body as your awareness shifts inward. The outside world fades further into the background. The sounds beyond the walls continue, but they no longer draw your attention in the same way. Inside, the space holds you. A curious detail mentioned in some interpretations is that fire itself may have been viewed not only as a practical necessity, but also as a symbolic presence representing continuity, life, and protection. Watching the flames now, you begin to see how that meaning could emerge. The fire does not speak, but it communicates. You close your eyes briefly. The light remains visible through your eyelids, a soft glow that pulses gently steady and reassuring. The warmth settles deeper into your body, easing tension, quieting thought. You remain there for a moment, still, listening. When you open your eyes again, the arrangement near the fire remains unchanged. No one has disturbed it. The stillness continues. You notice how time feels different in this moment. Not measured, not counted. It stretches quietly, shaped by presence rather than progression. You become aware of your breathing again. Slow, even, aligned with the rhythm around you. Scholars continue to examine the role of ritual in reinforcing social cohesion within early communities, with some suggesting that shared practices during difficult seasons helped maintain stability and connection. Sitting here, you feel that connection without needing explanation. It exists in the quiet, in the shared space, in the absence of urgency. You lower your gaze once more to the fire. The flames continue their gentle movement unchanged by your observation. They rise and fall steady as before, holding the center of the space. You shift slightly. The warmth adjusts with you, always present, always consistent. You glance around the room. Faces are calm. Movements minimal. The objects near the fire remain in place, their presence steady, their meaning held quietly within the group. No one rushes to end the moment. No one interrupts it. You feel yourself settling deeper into stillness. The outside world with its cold and darkness remains beyond the walls, distant, contained. Inside, something else has formed, a sense of continuity, of quiet assurance. You draw one more slow breath. The air feels warm. Warm, grounded, steady. The fire continues. The night holds. And within this space you understand how rituals do not stop the winter. They simply help you move through it. The fire settles into a quieter glow, and the objects placed near it remain undisturbed, holding their quiet presence at the center of the space. You feel the stillness deepen, not as silence, but as a shared pause that invites something softer to emerge. Someone shifts slightly across from you. A small movement, then another. A voice begins, low, measured. You turn your attention toward it. The words are not loud yet, they carry clearly through the roundhouse shaped by the curved walls and softened by the air. Each sentence unfolds slowly with care as though the speaker is guiding more than just sound. You listen. The story begins without introduction, without explanation. It simply flows, drawing you into a place that feels both distant and familiar. You do not need to understand every word to follow its rhythm. You feel it, the rise and fall, the quiet pauses, the subtle emphasis. A widely recognized feature of Celtic culture is the importance of oral storytelling as a means of preserving history, values, and identity. In the absence of written records for many communities, memory itself became the archive. Sitting here, you sense how deeply that tradition lives within the moment. You settle more comfortably. The warmth of the fire supports you, allowing your body to relax as your attention shifts fully toward the voice. The outside world fades further, replaced by the cadence of speech and the gentle glow of light. The storyteller continues. Their tone changes slightly as the story moves, sometimes softer, sometimes carrying a hint of quiet humour, sometimes slowing to allow a moment to linger. You notice how others respond not with interruption but with subtle shifts. A slight tilt of the head, a quiet breath, a faint movement of hands. You are not alone in listening. You are part of it. You draw a slow breath. The air feels warmer, now shaped by presence and sound as much as by the fire itself. The scent of smoke lingers, blending with the faint dryness of the walls and the natural warmth of the space. You close your eyes briefly. The story continues. Without sight, the words take on a different quality. They form images not in front of you but within you. Shapes, movements, places that exist in suggestion rather than detail. You see them. In your own way. A lesser discussed insight from anthropological studies is that oral storytelling often relies on the listener's imagination to complete the narrative, creating a shared experience that is both collective and personal. As you listen, you feel that balance unfolding. The story belongs to everyone, and to you alone. You open your eyes again. The firelight flickers softly, casting moving shadows along the curved walls. The storyteller's face is partially illuminated, their expression calm, focused, carried by the rhythm of their own voice. You watch their hands. They move occasionally, not dramatically, but enough to guide the flow of the story. A slight gesture here, a small pause there. Each movement adds to the experience. You listen more closely. The sounds of the outside world continue faint and distant, but they no longer draw your attention. The story has become the center, just as the fire was before. It holds you, gently. You notice how time feels different again. It stretches, not forward, but outward. The moments expand, allowing each word to settle fully before the next arrives. There is no rush to reach an ending, only a steady unfolding. You shift slightly, adjusting your position. The warmth follows you, consistent, reassuring. Your body feels lighter now, less aware of the cold that lingers beyond the walls. You become aware of your breathing, slow, even, aligned with the rhythm of the voice. A curious detail noted in some historical interpretations is that storytelling during long winter nights may have served not only as entertainment but also as a way to reinforce shared knowledge, social bonds, and cultural continuity. Sitting here, you feel that function clearly. The story is not separate from life. It is part of it. You glance briefly at those around you. Their expressions remain calm, attentive, shaped by the same quiet focus. No one interrupts, no one looks away for long. The shared attention creates a sense of connection that requires no words. You return your gaze to the fire. The flames continue their steady movement, reflecting in the eyes of those nearby, adding depth to the space. The light shifts but never disrupts. The storyteller's voice softens slightly. The pace slows. The words begin to space themselves more widely, allowing silence to enter between them. Each pause feels intentional, giving the story room to breathe. You feel yourself relaxing further. The tension in your shoulders fades. Your hands rest loosely. Your thoughts drift gently, following the flow of the narrative rather than forming their own direction. You close your eyes again. This time you do not open them immediately. The voice continues. The fire continues. The space holds steady. You remain there, listening, breathing, resting within the shared rhythm. When you open your eyes once more, the story is still unfolding, unchanged, steady as before. The night continues beyond the walls, but it no longer feels distant or unknown. It feels connected, part of the same quiet world. You draw one final slow breath. The warmth remains. The voice carries on, and you understand how stories like fire help sustain more than the body. They sustain the mind, the memory, the sense of belonging, and in the long stretch of winter nights that may be just as essential. The story continues to echo softly in your thoughts even as the voice begins to fade into silence. No clear ending is spoken. The final words simply settle into the air and the space accepts them without interruption. You remain still, listening for a moment longer, but nothing follows. The quiet returns gently as if it had only stepped aside to make room. The fire resumes its place at the center of attention, its steady glow filling the space once more. You notice a shift, not in sound, in focus. The presence of children becomes clearer now. They sit close to the fire, their smaller forms wrapped in layered clothing, their movements subtle and contained. Some lean against older figures. Others sit upright, watching the flames with quiet attention. You observe them carefully. They do not fidget. They do not wander. Their stillness feels practiced, not forced. You lean slightly forward. Curious. A broadly supported understanding of early Celtic life suggests that children were integrated into daily routines from a young age, learning through observation rather than formal instruction. Sitting here, you begin to see how that learning unfolds without words. A child shifts beside you. A small movement. They adjust the fabric around their shoulders, pulling it closer, mirroring the gestures you have seen from others throughout the day. The motion is simple yet precise. You notice it, the imitation, the learning. You glance toward another child nearby. They hold a small object in their hands, turning it slowly, examining its shape, its texture. It looks like a carved piece of wood, worn smooth from repeated handling. Their fingers move along its surface, tracing its edges without urgency. You watch quietly. They are not playing in a loud or energetic way. Their attention is focused, contained. A less frequently mentioned observation in studies of early communities is that play often mirrored adult activities, allowing children to develop skills and awareness gradually. As you observe these quiet interactions, you begin to understand how preparation for survival begins long before necessity demands it. You shift slightly, adjusting your position near the fire. The warmth continues to reach you steadily, and you notice how the children position themselves carefully within its range. Not too close, not too far. Their awareness of space mirrors that of the adults. You listen. A soft whisper passes between two children. Brief, almost inaudible. Then silence returns. You notice how even their voices remain low-shaped by the environment around them. The rhythm of the space influences everyone equally, regardless of age. You draw a slow breath. The air feels warm, layered with the scent of smoke and earth. It settles comfortably in your lungs, no longer sharp or unfamiliar. Your body has adjusted. You glance at the fire again. Its glow reflects in the eyes of those around you, including the children. The light moves gently across their faces, revealing expressions of calm focus rather than restlessness. You begin to understand something subtle. Stillness is taught here, not through instruction, through presence. You watch as one child reaches toward the ground, picking up a small piece of straw. They turn it between their fingers, bending it slightly, testing its strength. The motion is slow, deliberate. Then they place it back, carefully. Nothing is wasted, not even a moment. An intriguing point raised in some interpretations is that early exposure to environmental awareness may have helped children develop a strong sense of responsibility and adaptability. Sitting here, you sense how that awareness forms naturally shaped by the rhythm of daily life. You shift your gaze toward the doorway. The darkness outside remains unchanged, deep and still. It no longer draws your attention in the same way. The focus remains inside where warmth and quiet activity continue. You return your attention to the children. One leans gently against an older figure, their eyes half closed, not fully asleep but resting. Another sits upright, watching the fire, their expression calm, thoughtful. You notice how no one forces rest. It comes gradually. Naturally, the transition from wakefulness to sleep feels unstructured and guided more by the body than by time. You feel it within yourself, a gentle slowing, a softening of thought. You adjust your shoulders slightly. The layers of clothing settle around you, holding warmth in place. Your hands rest loosely in your lap, your fingers relaxed. You listen again. The fire continues its quiet rhythm. The occasional movement of fabric, a faint breath. Nothing more. You close your eyes briefly. The warmth remains, the sounds remain, the sense of shared presence remains. When you open your eyes again, the space feels unchanged yet deeper somehow. The quiet has settled further, becoming more complete. You glance once more at the children. They remain where they are. Their movements minimal, their awareness shaped by everything around them. No one directs them. No one instructs them. They learn by being here, by watching, by feeling. You draw one more slow breath. The air feels steady, grounded, familiar. The fire continues to burn. The night continues to hold. And within this space you understand how survival is not only taught through action, but through quiet observation passed gently from one generation to the next. The quiet deepens further as the night settles into its longest stretch. You feel it in the way movement slows almost completely in the way. Even the fire seems to breathe more gently, its glow steady but subdued. You remain seated, aware of your body in a different way now. The warmth holds you, but not entirely. A faint chill lingers at the edges of your awareness, touching your back, your feet, the parts of you that sit just beyond the reach of the fire. It is not uncomfortable, but it is present. You shift slightly, seeking balance. The layers of clothing adjust with you holding warmth closer where they can, allowing just enough movement to prevent stiffness. You notice how even this small adjustment changes how you feel. A subtle difference, yet meaningful. You glance around the space. Most remain still, some resting, others sitting quietly, their eyes half closed. The atmosphere has changed again, moving from shared activity into something quieter, more inward. You listen. The sounds are fewer now. The fire, a soft breath, the faint movement of someone shifting position. Nothing more than a quiet cough. It comes from across the room, brief but noticeable. It breaks the stillness for just a moment before fading back into silence. You lift your head slightly, watching. The person who coughed adjusts their position, pulling their clothing closer around them. The movement is small, controlled, as if conserving energy even in discomfort. You notice how no one reacts with alarm. The sound is acknowledged, then absorbed. A commonly understood reality of life in pre-modern environments is that illness, especially during colder months, was a constant risk. Without modern medicine, even minor conditions could become serious if not managed carefully. Sitting here, you sense that awareness beneath the calm. It does not create panic, it creates attentiveness. You draw a slow breath. The air feels warmer near the fire but slightly heavier now, carrying more smoke than before. It lingers in your throat for a moment, then settles. You adjust your posture, turning slightly to allow clearer air to reach you. The change helps. Small adjustments matter. You become aware of your own body again. Your hands feel warm, but your fingers carry a faint stiffness when you move them. Your shoulders hold a slight tension, not from strain, but from holding position for a long time. You roll them gently. The tension eases, slowly. A less frequently highlighted detail in studies of early living conditions is that maintaining health often depended on constant small efforts rather than large interventions. Adjusting posture, managing warmth, staying aware of changes in the body all contributed to survival. As you sit here, you begin to feel that principle in practice. You glance toward the fire. It burns lower now, its flames smaller, its embers more prominent. The glow remains, but the heat has softened. Someone leans forward and adds a small piece of wood, not enough to increase the fire dramatically, but enough to sustain it. The balance is preserved. You watch the flame respond. It grows slightly, then settles again. You listen. Another quiet cough, then silence. You notice how the body responds to the environment, how the cold, the smoke, and the stillness all shape how people feel and move. Nothing here is fair. Everything is connected. You shift your legs slightly. The ground beneath you feels firmer now, less forgiving after hours of stillness. You adjust your position, redistributing your weight, allowing circulation to return more evenly. The change is immediate, subtle, but noticeable. You draw a deeper breath. The air feels cooler as you inhale, warmer as you exhale. The contrast becomes more apparent now as your awareness sharpens. You glance again toward the person who coughed. They remain still, their breathing steady now, their posture relaxed once more. The moment passes without further disruption. A curious observation sometimes mentioned in historical analysis is that communities often relied on shared knowledge of remedies using herbs, warmth and rest to address illness. While you do not see these remedies directly here, you sense the awareness of them in the careful attention given to each individual. No one is ignored. No one is isolated. You lower your gaze. The fire continues. The embers glow steadily. Their light softer now, less active, but still present. You watch how they hold heat beneath the surface, releasing it slowly into the space. You feel it. Gentle, consistent. You rest your hands closer to your body, holding warmth in, conserving energy. The night stretches on, uninterrupted. You become aware of how time feels again. Not measured, but experienced. Each moment extends into the next without clear separation, forming a continuous flow that carries you forward. You close your eyes briefly. The warmth remains, the sounds remain, the awareness remains. When you open your eyes again, nothing has changed, and that constancy feels reassuring. You glance once more around the space. The people remain where they are, their presence steady, their movements minimal. The fire continues its quiet work, holding the center, maintaining balance. You draw one final slow breath. The air feels familiar. The warmth feels sufficient. The night feels manageable. You understand now that survival is not only about enduring the cold, but about maintaining balance within it, adjusting, constantly responding to small changes before they become larger problems. You settle back into stillness. The fire glows. The space holds, and the quiet continues. The night stretches on, and at some point, without clear notice, you feel the pull to move again. It is not urgency. It is a quiet need to shift, to step beyond the stillness that has held you for so long. You open your eyes fully. The fire has settled into a bed of glowing embers. Its light softer now, yet still enough to shape the space. The room remains calm, most figures resting their movements reduced to the slow rhythm of breath. You rise carefully. Your body responds with a slight stiffness, a reminder of how long you have remained still. You straighten slowly, allowing your muscles to adjust your balance to return. Then you turn towards the doorway. The darkness beyond remains deep, yet it no longer feels as unfamiliar as before. You step forward, pausing at the threshold where warmth meets cold in a gentle but unmistakable boundary. You take a breath, then step outside. The air greets you sharply. Cool, dry, alive. It touches your face, your hand slipping through the edges of your clothing, reminding you of its presence without overwhelming you. You stand still for a moment, letting your body adjust. The night sky stretches above you. Clear, wide, filled with faint stars that seem closer than before. Their light is soft, distant, yet steady, scattered across the dark expanse. You look upward. The stillness feels larger here. Beyond the shelter, beyond the fire, beyond the quiet walls that held you. You take a step forward. The ground beneath your feet feels harder now, its surface firm and unyielding. The moisture that once softened it has withdrawn further, leaving a crisp texture that responds to each step with a faint muted sound. You listen. The sounds of the settlement are quieter from here, softened by distance and structure. The fire's crackle is no longer clear, replaced by a faint, steady presence that blends into the background. The night has its own voice. You hear it in the movement of air across the land, in the distant shift of something unseen, in the quiet absence of daytime noise. You walk slowly, each step deliberate, measured. The cold settles gradually into your awareness, not as discomfort, but as a constant pressure that reminds you to remain attentive. You adjust your clothing slightly, pulling it closer, sealing in the warmth you carry. You pause, listening again. A distant sound reaches you, faint, a soft crunch, perhaps the movement of an animal across the frozen ground. It comes and goes quickly, leaving no clear trace behind. You remain still, not reacting, only observing. A broadly accepted understanding of life in Iron Age environments is that movement beyond the safety of the settlement during winter nights required caution, as visibility was limited, and the landscape could present hidden risks. Standing here, you feel that awareness settle into your posture. You do not wander far. You remain within the edge of familiarity. You take another step. The air feels colder now, away from the shelter, less influenced by the warmth of fire and bodies. It moves freely, uncontained, brushing against your skin with quiet persistence. You draw the slow breath. The cold air fills your lungs sharper than before, leaving a faint chill behind as you exhale. The sensation is clear, grounding you in the moment. You glance around. The shapes of the land are faint but present. The outline of the roundhouses, the low forms of the enclosures, the subtle rise and fall of the terrain beyond. Everything is still. You notice how your senses shift again. Your hearing sharpens. Your sight adapts slowly to the darkness. Your body remains alert, not tense but aware. A lesser explored observation in studies of early travel suggests that people often relied on memory of terrain and subtle environmental cues when moving through low visibility conditions. As you stand here, you sense how important that familiarity must have been. You take a few more steps, not far, just enough to feel the space. The ground responds beneath you, each movement creating a faint sound that seems louder in the stillness. You adjust your pace, placing your feet more carefully, reducing the noise. You listen again. The distant sound does not return. Only the wind, only the quiet. You turn slowly, looking back toward the settlement. The firelight glows faintly through the openings of the roundhouses, small points of warmth against the darkness. They guide your gaze, offering direction, reassurance. You begin to walk back. The movement feels natural, unforced. You do not linger outside longer than necessary. The cold encourages return not through discomfort, but through quiet suggestion. You reach the doorway, pause, then step inside. The warmth meets you again, gentle, immediate. You feel it along your hands, your face, your chest. It does not overwhelm. It simply replaces what was lost. You move back toward the fire. The embers glow steadily, their light soft but sufficient. You sit down slowly, your body easing back into stillness. The transition is complete. Outside movement, inside rest. You settle your hands in your lap. The warmth returns fully. Your breathing slows. Your body relaxes once more. You glance briefly toward the doorway. The darkness remains beyond it, unchanged, distant now. You turn your attention back to the fire. It continues. Stay. Reliable. You close your eyes for a moment. The cold remains in your memory. The warmth remains in your body. The balance between them feels clear. When you open your eyes again, you are fully present within the space, grounded, calm, aware. The night continues, and you have moved through it. The fire settles into a quieter rhythm as the night continues, and your awareness begins to drift toward the small, steady movements that fill the space without drawing attention. You notice hands at work. Not hurried, not loud, but constant. You sit slightly forward, watching more closely. A figure near the edge of the firelight holds a length of wool, twisting it slowly between their fingers. The fibers stretch, tighten and align as the motion repeats, creating a thread that grows longer with each careful turn. You listen. The sound is faint. A soft pull, a gentle friction, barely noticeable yet steady enough to form its own quiet rhythm. You watch the motion. It is precise, measured. Each twist builds upon the last, forming something stronger than what existed before. An established understanding of Iron Age Celtic life suggests that winter months were often used for crafting and maintenance tasks that could not be prioritized during busier seasons. Sitting here, you begin to see how time is used not only for rest, but for preparation. You shift slightly. Your body remains warm, supported by the fire, allowing your attention to settle fully on the work unfolding around you. Nearby, another person shapes a small piece of wood. They hold it close to the light, turning it slowly, examining its surface before making each adjustment. A simple tool rests in their hand, its edge worn smooth from use. You listen. A faint scrape. Soft. Controlled. The sound blends with the crackle of the fire, never interrupting, only joining the quiet pattern. You lean closer. The object takes shape gradually, its edges refined through small, careful movements. Nothing is rushed. Each action seems to consider what comes next. You realize something. Crafting here is not separate from survival. It is part of it. A less frequently highlighted observation from archaeological studies is that many tools and household items were likely produced or repaired during periods of reduced outdoor activity, ensuring readiness for the seasons ahead. As you observe this process, you sense how deeply that practice is woven into daily life. You glance toward another part of the space. A pair of hands works with strips of material, weaving them together into a tighter form. The pattern repeats over and over, creating a structure that grows stronger with each pass. You listen. The movement produces a faint rhythmic sound. Soft, consistent, almost soothing. You feel your breathing begin to match it. Slow, even. You settle deeper into stillness. The fire continues to support the space, its warmth allowing hands to remain flexible, allowing fingers to move without stiffness. Without that warmth, the work would slow, perhaps even stop. You understand the connection. Heat allows creation. You glance again at the spinning wool. The thread has grown longer now, coiled neatly beside the worker. It reflects the firelight faintly, its surface smooth, its strength hidden within its structure. You reach out briefly, touching the finished section. It feels firm, tightly bound. You release it gently, respecting the process. A curious detail sometimes noted in textile research is that the quality of spun wool could vary depending on technique and experience, with more consistent spinning producing stronger, more durable thread. Watching the careful movements here, you begin to see how skill develops through repetition. You shift your gaze back to the wooden object. It now resembles something more defined, perhaps a tool or part of one. The edges are smoother, the form clearer, yet still incomplete. The work continues. Without pause, you notice how conversation remains minimal. Words are not needed. The focus rests in the hands, in the materials, in the quiet understanding of what must be done. You draw a slow breath. The air feels warm, steady, shaped by the fire and the presence of others. It holds the scent of smoke mixed with the faint dryness of wool and the natural smell of wood. You close your eyes briefly. The sounds remain. The soft scrape, the gentle pull, the quiet crackle. They blend into a single continuous rhythm. When you open your eyes again, the work continues unchanged. Time feels different here. Not divided, not measured. It flows through movement, through repetition, through the steady shaping of materials into something useful. You glance around the spee. More hands are at work than you first realized. Small tasks, quiet tasks, each contributing to the whole. No single action stands out. Yet together they form something essential. You shift your shoulders slightly. The warmth holds. Your body remains relaxed. You become aware of how this kind of work supports more than survival. It supports continuity. Each object created, each repair completed, carries forward the ability to endure what is coming. An insightful perspective, sometimes discussed in historical interpretations, is that winter crafting may have also served as a way to maintain mental focus and emotional balance during long periods of reduced activity. Sitting here, you feel that effect clearly. The work steadies the mind. You watch the spinning continue. The thread grows. You watch the carving continue. The shape refines. You watch the weaving continue. The pattern strengthens. Nothing's finished quickly, but everything moves forward. You rest your hands in your lap once more. The warmth settles deeper. Your breathing slows further. The rhythm of the work surrounds you, gentle and continuous, guiding your awareness into a calm, steady state. Outside, the cold holds its ground. Inside, creation continues, and you understand how even in the stillness of winter, life does not pause. It adapts. It prepares. It quietly builds what will be needed next. The steady rhythm of quiet work continues for a time, then gradually softens as hands begin to slow. One by one, small tasks come to rest. Tools are set aside, materials are gathered and placed carefully where they will be found again. You notice the shift. It is subtle, but clear. Attention turns once more toward the fire, toward the shared space at the center. The warmth remains constant, yet something else changes beneath it. You feel it first in your iri, a slight tightening, a quiet awareness. You glance toward the area where food had been prepared earlier. The containers are still there, arranged with care, their contents protected and measured. No one reaches for them immediately. No one acts without intention. You sit still, observing. A well-grounded interpretation of winter life in early agricultural communities suggests that food supply during colder months required strict awareness and discipline, as resources had to last until the next growing season. Sitting here, you begin to sense that discipline, not as restriction, but as balance. You watch as a small portion is taken from one of the containers. The movement is deliberate, measured. The amount is modest, carefully considered before it is passed along. Nothing is taken in excess, nothing is left to chance. You notice how the portion is shared, quietly, without discussion. Each person receives what is needed, no more, no less. The process unfolds with an ease that suggests long familiarity. You draw a slow breath. The scent of food rises again, faint but noticeable. It carries warmth, comfort, and something deeper, something tied to memory and necessity. You feel your body respond, not with urgency, but with awareness. You take a small portion in your hands. It feels warm, solid. You hold it for a moment before bringing it closer. The taste is simple, earthy, sustaining. It does not overwhelm the senses. It does not invite indulgence. It fulfills a need and nothing more. You understand the purpose, energy, nothing wasted. A lesser emphasized detail in studies of historical diets is that meals during winter were often smaller and more controlled, designed to stretch limited supplies across long periods. As you sit here, you feel that balance in practice. You finish slowly, not because there is little, but because each moment matters. You place your hands back in your lap. The warmth of the fire returns to your attention, blending with the warmth of the food within you. The two combine, supporting your body in a quiet, steady way. You listen. The sounds remain soft. The crackle of the fire, a faint movement of fabric, the occasional shift of someone settling more comfortably. No one rushes to take more. No one reaches again. The portion has been enough. You notice how the containers are closed once more. Carefully, securely. Each action ensures that what remains will last. You feel the weight of that understanding. Not heavy, but present. You glance around. The faces remain calm, their expressions unchanged, yet there is a quiet awareness that runs beneath the surface. Each person knows the limits. Each person respects them. You shift slightly. The ground beneath you feels firmer, now your body more aware after the small movement of eating. You adjust your position, redistributing your weight. The warmth remains. The balance holds. Holds. A thoughtful perspective sometimes raised in historical discussions is that scarcity, when managed collectively, can strengthen cooperation and mutual reliance within a community. Sitting here, you sense that connection not as a concept, but as a lived experience. No one is separate from the whole. You glance toward the fire again. The embers glow steadily. Their light softer now, yet still sufficient to shape the space. The heat they provide is constant even as the visible flames diminish. You extend your hands briefly. The warmth reaches you. Gentle, reliable. You lower them again. The warmth stays. You become aware of your breathing. Slow, even. Your body feels supported not only by what you have eaten, but by the rhythm of the space itself. You listen once more. The outside world remains distant, its sounds faint, its presence contained beyond the walls. Inside, everything continues in quiet balance. You notice how no one speaks of hunger. It is understood, managed, held within the structure of daily life. You close your eyes briefly. The warmth remains. The quiet remains. The sense of shared understanding remains. When you open your eyes again, nothing has changed. And that constancy brings a quiet reassurance. You rest your hands gently. The fire continues. The supplies remain. The balance holds. You understand now that survival is not only about having enough, but about knowing how to use what you have, how to extend it, how to share it without excess or waste. You settle deeper into stillness. The night continues, and within it the careful management of resources becomes as essential as warmth itself. At some point, without a clear moment of change, you sense that the night has begun to loosen its hold. It is not yet morning and the darkness remains, but something within it feels less complete. You open your eyes slowly. The fire has settled into a low, steady glow, its embers quiet but still alive. The room remains calm, most figures resting, their breathing soft and even. Nothing moves with urgency, yet something has shifted. You sit up slightly, listening. The sounds beyond the walls feel different now, still faint, still distant, but less enclosed. The night no longer presses inward in the same way. It feels as though it's beginning to open. You draw a slow breath. The air carries a subtle change. Not warmer, but lighter. You notice it clearly. You turn your gaze toward the doorway. The darkness there remains, but it has thinned. The edges of shapes begin to return, faint outlines emerging where there was once only shadow. The land outside is beginning to reveal itself again. You rise carefully. Your body responds more easily than before. The stiffness reduced your movement smoother. You step toward the entrance, pausing briefly at the threshold. Then you step outside. The air greets you again, cool and steady, but it feels different now. It no longer carries the deep stillness of night. Instead, there is a subtle movement within it, a quiet transition that you can feel against your skin. You look upward. The sky has changed. The darkness has softened into a deep grey touched faintly by the earliest hint of light. It is not yet visible as colour, but it is present just beneath the surface. You stand still, watching. A widely observed feature of winter in northern regions is the gradual and extended transition between night and day, where light returns slowly, often without clear boundaries. As you observe the sky, you begin to feel that slow unfolding. It does not arrive suddenly. It grows. You listen. The sounds of the night have changed as well. The distant movements that once felt uncertain have quieted. In their place, a new stillness emerges, one that feels less guarded, less tense. You hear it, the absence of something, the fading of what came before. You take a step forward. The ground beneath your feet remains firm, but it feels less cold than it did earlier. The surface responds more easily to your movement, the sharp edge of the night's chill beginning to soften. You pause again, listening. A faint sound reaches you. Subtle, almost lost in the air. A distant bird. Only once. Then silence. You notice it immediately. The first sign, a lesser-known observation from environmental studies, is that certain bird species begin to stir before sunrise, their calls marking the earliest moments of transition from night to day. As you stand here, that single sound feels significant. It marks change. You draw a deeper breath. The air feels clearer now, carrying less of the dense stillness that defined the night. It moves more freely, brushing against your face with a lighter touch. You glance back toward the settlement. The shapes of the roundhouses are more visible now, their outlines defined by the faint returning light. The glow from within them appears softer, less dominant. The fire is no longer the only source of illumination. You turn your gaze back to the horizon. The sky continues to shift, the deep grey lifting, slowly revealing a faint gradient that spreads outward. It is not bright, but it is growing. You feel it, a quiet release. The tension of the night eases not through sudden warmth, but through the return of visibility of space of awareness. You step forward again. The cold remains, but it feels less sharp, less immediate. Your body responds with less resistance, your movements more fluid. You listen once more. The faint sound returns. Another. Then another. Each one brief spaced apart, as if testing the air before committing to movement. The pattern builds slowly, not yet forming a chorus, but suggesting one. You recognize the shift. Life is returning outward. An interesting perspective sometimes discussed in historical interpretation is that the return of light after long winter nights may have carried psychological significance, offering reassurance and continuity in environments where darkness dominated for extended periods. Standing here, you feel that reassurance begin to settle. You close your eyes briefly. The air feels different. The space feels wider. When you open them again, the change is clearer. The sky holds more light now, still soft, still muted, but unmistakable. The darkness has receded, leaving behind a quiet openness. You turn and begin to walk back toward the shelter. Your steps feel lighter, more certain. You reach the doorway and step inside. The warmth meets you again, familiar and steady. The fire continues to glow, but its presence feels different now, less central as the outside world begins to reassert itself. You sit down once more. Your body settles easily. The warmth blends with the freshness of the air you carried, in creating a balanced, comfortable space. You listen. The sounds inside begin to shift as well. Subtle movements, a quiet stir, the earlier signs of waking. The rhythm of the night is ending. The rhythm of the day begins. You rest your hands gently. Your breathing remains slow. Your awareness remains calm. The transition continues. Not abrupt, not dramatic. dramatic, but steady. You understand now that survival is not only about enduring the cold and the darkness, but also about recognizing these small tears, these quiet signals that mark the passing of time. You sit still, the fire glows, the light grows, and a new day begins to take shape. The first light of morning continues to gather, slowly filtering into the space through the doorway and soft openings above. It does not replace the firelight, but it joins it, creating a gentle blend of warmth and pale illumination. You remain seated for a moment, observing the change. The interior of the roundhouse feels different now, not warmer but more open. Shadows soften, shapes become clearer, and the space feels less enclosed than it did during the night. You draw a slow breath. The air feels fresher, carrying a faint trace of morning. You notice movement around you, subtle at first. Someone shifts their position, sitting more upright. Another reaches toward the fire, adjusting a piece of wood, encouraging a small flame to rise again from the embers. The day begins quietly, without announcement. A widely accepted understanding of early agrarian societies is that the transition from winter toward the growing season required careful early preparation even before visible signs of change appeared in the landscape. Sitting here, you sense that preparation beginning long before the snow fully retreats. You rise slowly. Your body responds more easily now, the stiffness of the night fading as a warmth and movement return. You step toward the doorway once more. Outside, the land reveals itself. The light is still soft, yet more defined than before. The hills stretch outward, their contours visible again, their surfaces touched by a pale diffuse. You step forward. The air greets you with a familiar chill, but it no longer feels as sharp as it did during the night. It carries a subtle softness, a quiet suggestion of change. You pause, listening. The sounds of the morning begin to form, faint at first, then clearer. Birds call intermittently, their voices light and measured. The wind moves gently across the land, no longer carrying the same weight as before. Even the distant sounds of the settlement begin to rise again. You feel it, the return of motion. You walk a few steps into the clearing. The ground beneath your feet feels firm, yet slightly more responsive than it did during the deepest part of the night. The surface holds its shape, but yields just enough to suggest a shift. You notice it, subtle, but present. A lesser-known observation from environmental research suggests that the earlier stages of seasonal transition can often be detected through minor changes in soil texture and air moisture long before visible growth appears. As you move across the ground, you begin to feel that quiet shift beneath your feet. You glance toward the edge of the settlement. People begin to emerge from their shelters, their movements slow and deliberate, mirroring the gradual return of light. No one rushes, no one breaks the calm. The rhythm builds gently. You watch as someone carries a small bundle of tools, their hands steady, their pace measured. Another checks a stack of stored materials, ensuring that everything remains secure. Preparation continues, even now. A thoughtful interpretation sometimes raised in historical discussions is that the anticipation of spring required not only patience but active readiness, as communities needed to respond quickly when conditions allowed for planting and renewal. Standing here, you sense that readiness forming quietly. You draw a deeper breath. The air fills your lungs with a cool clarity sharper than the warmth inside, yet no longer harsh. It feels clean, open, inviting awareness. You look toward the horizon. The light has grown stronger now, spreading across the sky in a soft gradient. The colours remain muted, but they carry a quiet promise. You feel it, a gentle lift, not of temperature, but of perception. You turn slowly, taking in the full scene. The round houses stand steady, their forms grounded and familiar. The enclosures hold their quiet presence. The pathways between them begin to fill with movement once more. Life resumes. Gradually, you walk back towards the nearest shelter. The firelight still glows inside, though it no longer dominates the space. It has become part of a larger balance, one that now includes the returning light of day. You step inside briefly. The warmth greets you again, blending with the freshness you carry from outside. The transition feels smoother now, less defined. You sit for a moment, reflecting. The night has passed. The day begins. You feel the continuity between them. No sharp division, only a set steady. You rest your hands gently. Your body feels balanced, neither cold nor overly warm. Your breathing remains slow, aligned with the calm rhythm of the space. You glance once more toward the doorway. The light continues to grow. The world continues to reveal itself. You stand again, ready. You step outside once more. The air meets you with quiet clarity. The sounds of the morning build slowly around you, each one adding to the sense of renewal. You understand now that survival is not only about enduring the hardest moments, but about recognizing these transitions, these small shifts that signal opportunity. You take another step forward. The ground responds beneath you. The lights surround you. The day continues to unfold, and you are ready to move with it. The morning settles fully around you, not in a sudden brightness, but in a gradual widening of light that softens every edge of the land. You stand within it, aware of how different everything feels compared to the long stretch of night you have just passed through. The cold remains, yet it no longer defines the moment. You take a slow breath. The air feels clear, steady, carrying the quiet promise of movement and change. It touches your face gently, no longer sharp, no longer pressing, but present in a way that invites attention rather than resistance. You walk a few steps forward. The ground responds beneath you with a faint firmness still shaped by the cold, yet beginning to loosen in small, almost unnoticeable ways. Each step feels more certain, less cautious than before. You pause, looking around. The settlement moves with a quiet renewal. People step out into the light, their movements unhurried yet purposeful. The tasks of the day begin again, shaped by everything you've witnessed through the night. A broadly supported understanding of Celtic life suggests that endurance through winter was not only a physical challenge, but a process that reinforced identity knowledge and communal strength. Standing here, you begin to feel how those elements are carried forward not as ideas, but as lived experience. You turn slightly, taking in the roundhouses once more. They stand firm against the land, their curved forms blending into the environment, their presence both protective and unassuming. You understand them now, not just as structures, but as responses to wind, to cold, to time. You glance toward the enclosures. The animals move slowly, their breath visible in the cool air, their bodies steady, part of the same quiet rhythm. Their presence remains constant, their role unchanged yet essential. You draw another breath. The scent of smoke lingers, faintly mixed now with the freshness of morning air. It carries a familiarity that settles easily within you, no longer sharp, no longer overwhelming. You feel it, a sense of continuity. You step forward again. The light continues to grow, spreading across the land, revealing details that were hidden before. The hills, the paths, the subtle textures of the ground all return to view. You notice how your awareness shifts with it. What was once sensed through sound and touch now becomes visible, clear, defined. Yet the memory of the night remains within you, shaping how you see, how you move, how you understand. You pause once more, reflecting. A lesser discussed perspective in historical interpretation suggests that enduring harsh seasons may have contributed to the development of resilience not only in physical terms but in cultural memory, shaping traditions and behaviours across generations. As you stand here, that idea feels present, grounded in everything you have experienced. You turn back toward the settlement. The fire still burns within the roundhouses, though its role has changed. It is no longer the sole source of warmth and light. It becomes part of a larger system, one that now includes the returning day. You walk slowly toward it, not out of necessity, but out of familiarity. You step inside briefly. The warmth greets you again, softer now, blending seamlessly with the light that enters from outside. The space feels open, less enclosed yet still protective. You sit for a moment, letting the balance settle. Your body feels steady, your breathing calm, your awareness clear. The contrast between night and day, cold and warmth inside and outside, has become something you understand, something you move through without resistance. You close your eyes gently. The warmth remains, the sounds remain, the memory remains. You sit there allowing everything to settle, to soften, to integrate. Then slowly you begin to let the experience drift into something quieter. The sounds of the morning continue outside, but they feel distant now, softened by your stillness. The fire glows gently beside you, no longer needing your full attention. Your breathing slows further. Even steady. You feel the weight of the night fade, replaced by a lightness that does not demand thought or effort. The cold, the darkness, the careful preparation, all of it settles into memory, into understanding. You remain still, letting go of detail, holding only the calm. The warmth becomes softer, the light becomes gentler. Your awareness narrows, not into focus, into rest. You sense the rhythm of the space around you, steady and unbroken, continuing without your attention. The world moves forward, but you no longer need to follow it. You rest. The fire fades into a quiet glow, the light softens further. Your breath slows, and the story, like the night before, it comes gently to a close. Sleep well,